Hi again, welcome back inside the Tier 4 studio here in Morgantown, West Virginia. For the Charleston Gazette-Mail, I am Mike Casazza, and this, of course, is the Tuesday Taboo. 6 games in 2 open weekends, now in our rear view mirror, provided you have one of those. 6 games, 1 open weekend to go the rest of the way. The middle of the season is always a fun time for retrospect and projections. We're not going to do that today. I don't have to tell you how difficult this 4-game stretch that West Virginia concludes Thursday at TCU is, but it's been more than 2 decades since West Virginia played 4 ranked teams in succession, and this is just a different stretch altogether. 3 of these teams are on the road. They're highly ranked. The 4-game stretch from the early 90s, not quite as high ranked. Certainly no national title contenders in succession like you're finding this time. Different times. It's hard to compare this to anything from the past, just like it's hard to compare this 3-game losing streak to your favorite 3-game losing streak from now the past 4 seasons. Hard to believe, isn't it? But not why I'm here today. Not going to talk about coaching rumors, which, whether I like it or not, is part of the business, I suppose, these days, and sometimes not because of what is written, but rather who has written it. And I'm not even going to discuss David Sills and where and how and when the Mountaineers tried to fit him into the offense. Let's discuss instead an idea. I don't have a question for you today, but I have a talking point. Conjure up your strongest emotion right now from a 3-3 record and 0-3 mark in the Big 12. I get frustration, resignation, anger, sadness, despair, whatever. But find that emotion for a second and then go to the core of it and figure out why you feel that way. Is it because this is not what you expected? I think that's a large source of emotion. People didn't see this coming, perhaps. Now, we knew the Big 12 was going to be hard, and we knew that West Virginia would probably walk through the non-conference play, but it's supposed to be better, right? It's supposed to be better in the 4th year in the Big 12 and the 5th year under Dana Holgorsen, and I think that's a fair and accurate comment and criticism. But let's also wonder specifically why you didn't see it coming. Did you think, for example, that the quarterback play would be better? That Skyler Howard was not supposed to be this person who he is? Did you think that the offensive line was supposed to be deeper and hold up better than it appears to be right now? Did you think this defense was supposed to have great depth, especially in that superstar secondary? Things like that I want you to think about for a second. Quiz yourself. You're allowed to even look at the answers because it's your answer, right? But here's where I want to get to. Access. All those things I just mentioned are part of rooting for a team, but also part of reporting for a team. It's difficult to report on things, which makes it difficult to root for things when you are not given access regularly to those subjects. This is not a stage for me to complain about how often we get to see practice, which is not at all during the season. It's not a time for me to say that West Virginia does it wrong and someone else does it right by letting us in for just a half an hour, once, maybe twice a week during the preseason camp part of things. Not my point. They can do what they want, and I have to go and do what they want because it's my job. I'm a spoke on a wheel, and I'm not trying to be the greasy wheel here. What I'm trying to point out, though, is that when you're writing about what you see, and you don't see very much, you get in situations like this, and you, on the other end of it, don't really know how to feel about some things because maybe you were sold a false bill. I understand that. It's a frustration. But then I wonder, does that frustration for you have you torch and pitchforking coaches, players, units? Because maybe the reality all along was that West Virginia only had 6 guys in the offensive line. That Skyler Howard could miss some throws and sometimes turn the ball over. That West Virginia still has a shortcoming at usable receivers, while it does have great depth and talent. That West Virginia does have big names and great players in the secondary, but doesn't have a lot of reinforcements. Those are things that are all here right now, and if we're honest, they might have been there back in August had we taken a closer look, had we been able to take a closer look. And I do think that ramps up reactions and emotions at this time of year. But also, we write these things too. We're guilty. And that's kind of hard to admit sometimes, but you also must understand the conditions. You can only write what you see. If you don't see very much, you can't write as much as you want to. You can suppose a lot of things, speak in hypotheticals. People don't like to read that. They want takes, opinions, information, not what ifs, what could be's, what might happen one day. But also, where you get things and what you get is important to consider too, because coaches know they have microphones around, players know they have cameras around. You're going to say great things. You're going to talk up your unit, your teammates, the room of players that you coach, and that is powerful in August and sometimes dangerous in October. So So what I want to say then is that look at things right now, figure out where you're at, how you feel, and why. And then judge it going forward, because you have 6 games now as a body of information. That's certainly better than 3 weeks of preseason practice and then 6 games in the season. These final 6 games are different. I think it's kind of foolhardy to suggest that West Virginia will be better on the other end of this 4-game stretch just because the Mountaineers are not playing these high-level opponents, because I think you can look at things and say that this is not the same team that went into it. Certainly without Carl Joseph, Terrell Chestnut, perhaps Saturday, maybe even longer. Definitely no Ricky Rumpf on Thursday. That secondary is not in great shape anymore, and there are shortcomings for packages Tony Gibson for use, for personnel groupings he wants to employ against some of these offenses that he's seeing. So now you know this, so use that as a gauge going forward. You know West Virginia has 1 reserve offensive lineman. If you're seeing Yadni Kajus get worn out on the left end, they're not leaning and pushing like they want to, maybe you understand now that the offensive line is not what it was perhaps talked up to be or written up to be back in August. If you see a true freshman quarterback running routes at receiver and you wonder, how is this happening? They're supposed to have great receivers. Now you know after 6 games maybe that's not the case. A fun time at the end of the season, an interesting time where public opinion could shape a lot of decisions in the stands, maybe even in the administration. Just put your thinking cap on and go the right way with this one. That's all for this time. I'll see you next time. For the Charleston Gazette Mail, I'm Mike Casazza.